One marriage, 25 years, 8 children. Here we go. My wife and I, Dana, have been married 25 years. We do have 8 children, and at some point in that 25 years, we spent 23 straight semesters of full-time theological education. We have been where you are, and we decided a long time ago that we would not let seminary dictate our family. We would let our family dictate how we did seminary. When my 19-year-old daughter, Georgia, was about 5 years old, we went on our first date, if you will, and I said, "What do you want to do?" She said, "I want to go to Don Pablo's, and then after we eat at Don Pablo's, I want to go to the mall, and then when we go to the mall, I want to hold hands in the mall and eat ice cream." All right, I can deliver. So we ate at Don Pablo's, and we're talking about deep subjects like Barbie and babies and dolls and candy, and it wasn't exactly what I had anticipated. And then we went to the mall, and we're holding hands, eating ice cream, and we're talking about Barbie and candy and dolls. And then in the middle of it, she says, "Dad, guess what?" And I said, "What?" Barbie got a new camper. I don't know what. She said, "When I grow up, I'm going to have a husband, and I'm going to love him forever." I'm like, whoa, where did that come from? We're just talking about candy and Barbie. Where did that come from? And it's crazy because what I realized is that little girl is walking around that mall holding my hand, and somehow she's feeling warm feelings toward me, and she knows that my wife and I go out and we hold hands and we eat ice cream in the mall, and she's thinking, "I bet this is how mom feels about dad, and I bet this is how I'm going to feel about my husband." And boom, she just fast forwarded to her marriage, and one day I'm going to have a husband, I'm going to love him forever. Now I got to tell you, boys walking around the mall holding their mother's hand aren't thinking about getting married, all right? If you raised him right, all he's thinking about is how to get out of the mall, right? But the moment also hit me and realized, wow, it wasn't just the responsibility of parenting. I already felt that. It's just the idea that I realized she's thinking about marriage. One day she is going to be married, and one day there's going to be a bullseye on her marriage, just like there's a bullseye on my marriage, and that exponentially made me feel the burden of my own home and my own marriage when God says in Genesis 3:15, "I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and her offspring. You shall bruise his heel, and he shall crush your head." Not only is that the first offer of the gospel, it is a declaration of war. When you tell somebody you're going to crush their head, you're telling them you're going to die. And it's the offspring of this woman who at some point is going to be the one to crush the head of Satan. And so you can see already here, right there in the beginning, there's going to be great enmity, not just between the immediate offspring of Eve, but all the offspring. There's going to be a battle royale that is going to involve your home in my home. And so my assignment tonight is to encourage you in taking care of your family. Number one, prioritize your marriage over your children. Children are sweet. Children are a great thing. But Adam and Eve were a family before children came along. In Ephesians 5, the gospel picture of Christ and the church is pictured by the husband and wife. Children are an addition to an already existing family. When people say to me, "We're thinking about starting our family," I don't get all uptight about it, but I just remind them, you already are one. Your children are an addition, hopefully a welcomed addition, but they're a welcome addition to an already existing family. When you prioritize your marriage over your children, sometimes it's counterintuitive. Sometimes we think if we don't prioritize our children, make them feel like the most important people on the planet, then they're going to have low self-esteem and they're going to feel insecure and they're never going to do anything with their life, and it's really just the opposite. Actually, prioritizing your marriage over your children, making sure your children understand that your marriage is more important than they are, than your relationship with them, actually brings great security to your children. In fact, for even younger children, how does a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old really know how things are in the world, whether or not things are okay in the world? How would they know? Are they reading the Wall Street Journal? Are they watching the evening news? No. The only way that a 4 or 5 or 6 or 7-year-old child really knows if things are okay in their world or not is how they feel about whether or not their parents are okay with one another. Now, they're not sophisticated enough to explain that to you, and they can't say, hey, look, I was really disobedient today because you two were arguing and weren't getting along, and it disrupted my soul, and I didn't know what to do, so I just acted out all day long, and you thought I was just declaring World War III, but really it's your fault because you're making me feel like there's nothing going on good in the world. They can't do any of that, but I can assure you there is a direct connection between the soul of a child and whether or not they act out or not, oftentimes is connected to whether or not the parents are getting along, whether or not that child has seen parents laughing together, smiling, having a positive conversation at the end of the day. Why is it my 10-year-old son, when I kiss my wife, says, "Do it again, Dad, do it again"? First of all, I don't need any help from you. I know exactly what to do. How do you think your older siblings got here? But why do they do that? It warms their soul. It's true for our older children as well, in a different way. I'll kiss my wife in front of my older children, and they'll all get a room, and they act like it bothers them, but it still warms their soul, even though they're 17, 18, 19 years old. You can't go wrong. One of the greatest gifts you will give your children, if you really want to bless your children, one of the greatest gifts you will give your children is a strong marriage. Some simple ways we do this. When I come home at the end of a day, I greet my wife first every day. And the older children don't come running out yelling, "Daddy, Daddy." That would be odd. But the little children still, they'll come running, "Dad, Dad, Dad." And every day it's the same episode. "I don't want to talk to you. Get out of the way. Move out of the way. Where's your mother?" Now, why would they subject themselves on a daily basis to that kind of rejection? Because it warms their soul. It brings confidence into their little world. If things are okay with mom and dad, then things are just okay, period. When we go out at night, on occasion, without the children, I'll pull them all together and just remind them, we're going out without you. You know why we're going out without you? Why? Because we want to have some fun. And do you think that they all go run in their rooms and curl up in the fetal position and pout and cry and feel bad? No. They don't. Don't dote over your children at the expense of your marriage. It may feel good and it may feel right, but it is dead wrong. Number 2, I'll be referring to 1 Peter 3:7. I like to say a word to you men in terms of your marriage. Peter admonishes men to do something incredibly important, incredibly significant, and incredibly detailed. Live your wives in your understanding way, showing honor to the woman as the weaker vessel, because they're heirs of the grace of life with you, so that your prayers may not be hindered. Men, this is an incredible responsibility to make sure you're living with your wife in an understanding way. Know what blesses your wife. Showing honor to her as a woman, as a weaker vessel, not because she's weaker intellectually, not because she's weaker spiritually, but I think it's a straightforward reading of the text. She's weaker physically. You show honor to her and care for her more than you would something that is stronger. Reminding you that you're equal in this thing, and if you don't do this, then God says your prayers might be hindered. For husbands and wives, this idea of living with each other in an understanding way, this is addressed to men, but a wife should feel just as obligated to understand and know her husband, know what blesses him. I've read all the love language books, and I'm not sure why we keep buying the love language books. The love languages for teenagers, love languages. I don't really think there are such things as a love language. I could write all three of those books in one sentence. Find out what other people like and then do that for them. There it is. No footnotes, no copyright. You can use that. Nothing. Easy as that. I want to encourage all of you. If some of you, I'm sure, in here are single. One day you're probably going to be married. Make incredible investments in one another. Make incredible investments in one another. Showing your care for one another. Showing that you do understand the other person. Showing you know what blesses that other person. For the life of me, I'm not sure why couples end up in these ruts and they end up holding grudges. There's a lack of forgiveness, but they just don't think about doing something nice for one another. You want to prioritize your marriage, date one another, go on a vacation without your children. This has blessed our marriage for 25 years. You say, well, that's simple. It is not simple. It is not simple, but it is worth it. Find an older couple. Find a couple that's older than you and is wiser than you, that's been further down the road than you. I mean, my goodness, what I find so often is that we congregate with people that are exactly in our stage of life, and all you end up doing is commiserating with one another. That's all you're doing. Neither one of you knows anything more than the other person. And all you do is just spiral down, and you convince each other, this is so bad and this is so hard, and I don't know how we're going to make it. Every semester I end up having a lunch with at least 2 or 3 young men who say, I'm going to have to take next semester off because we're having our second child and it is just going to be overwhelming. And I'm like, you know, people sometimes have them 2 at a time, right? 3 at a time. And I always say, are you guys hanging out with anybody older than you? Somebody in their 40s? Well, no. Who are you hanging out with? Well, people in our Sunday school class, they're all the same. Yeah. What you need is an older man and an older woman to come tell you that is not overwhelming. You just need somebody to help redefine your reality. And if you're only spending time with people your age, you are always going to feel like you're overwhelmed and this is all hard and I don't know how we're going to do it. What you need to do is talk to somebody that's already done it. To look back and help you redefine reality and say, oh yeah, we did that. Here's how we did that. Here's how you need to be doing that. When it comes to parenting, don't skip the hard work of reaching the heart of your child. If I could just say one thing about parenting, that's all I'm going to say. Don't skip the hard work. You are going to get into a situation while you're here and you're going to be busy and things are going to be going 100 miles an hour. And the last thing you want to do is stop and dig around in the heart of your child to help correct what's really going on. You're just going to say, quit doing that. And you're going to be happy that they just quit doing that. And you're going to become a great producer of Pharisees. You're going to end up being content that your kid's all cleaned up on the outside, but on the inside, he still stinks like a grave. That's what Jesus said. You're like whitewashed tombs. You're all cleaned up on the outside, but on the inside, you stink like rotting flesh. And it's going to be so easy. Wherever you're called, whatever you're doing, even right now while you're here, it's going to be so easy just to say, as long as he's just not doing anything horrific right now, I'm going to be fine with that. Jesus said, or Proverbs says, guard your heart, for from it flows the spring of life. We're very often merely content about what's going on the outside, but God is concerned about what's going on in the heart. You ever ask your kid, if you have a kid, why did you do that? Every parent has asked their kid this. Why did you do that? And what do you want them to say? Really? Well, Dad, I'm only 4, but here's how I see it. A guy named Adam, a lady named Eve, they ate the fruit. Sin entered into the world. I inherited the sin nature of Adam. Now Romans 7, I don't do what I want to do. I do what I don't want to. I mean, what do you want them to say? That's your job. Because you're the one that does know why they did it. Why are you asking them? They're 4. Your job is to help reach their heart and help inform them of what their heart is capable of and why their heart is doing that or leading them to that. My 15-year-old daughter, when she was 8, we have a couple of gaming systems in our house, and we have a little pass system. You have 3 little passes a week, and you get to play the Wii for 30 minutes 3 times a week. It's a little square piece of paper, copy paper with their initials on it. So I one day walk up to her room, and she's in the bedroom, sitting on the bed with a pair of scissors and a piece of paper, cutting out squares about the size of a game pass. I said, Peyton, what are you doing? And she smiled. She's really sweet. She said, I'm just cutting paper, Daddy. Just cutting paper. Well, she's got a whole counterfeit operation going on in that bedroom. And I had somebody tell me, well, at least she told the truth. Are you kidding me? What's happening in there is I could have just said, all right, she's just cutting paper. Because I'm sure the Braves were on. It's a Saturday. I'm sure I should be watching the game. I mean, I'm up here messing around with a counterfeit 8-year-old. But she's in that bedroom. It's much worse than this. She's in the bedroom planning to deceive her parents. Now, I don't know if she thought she was going to play the Xbox 40 hours this week and me not know it. But you cannot get too busy to not do the hard work of reaching the hearts and training the heart of your children. And lastly, you got to understand the reality of the battle. You are in a battle. In fact, we could have just said, these are the 5 top things that are going to be attacked in your life. I didn't even think about that until earlier. The 5 top places you're going to get attacked. You are in a battle. And it doesn't always feel like we're in a battle, because look at the place we're in. And look at the fine houses we live in and the cars we're driving and all the things compared to people that are in other parts of the world. It doesn't feel like we're in a battle. It feels like we got it pretty good. But Paul tells the Ephesians, finally, be strong in the Lord and the strength of his might. Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the schemes of the devil. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers, over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. When my oldest son, Gunnar, was about 9 years old, we were coming home from a football practice. And he said, Dad, you ever seen the movie Napoleon Dynamite? I said, yeah. He said, was it any good? I said, it's probably the dumbest movie ever made by human hands. I want all my brain cells back from when I watched it. Now, his next question bothered me, not because my kids aren't allowed to ask questions, but because he hadn't typically asked questions. He hadn't typically questioned me, because a 9-year-old boy thinks his dad is the greatest human being in the whole world. And so it bothered me that his first question was, when can I see it? Well, I said, Gunnar, are there times when you think that there are good things out there for you, things that you would enjoy, things that you would embrace and that would be very fun for you, and I know about them, but I just don't give them to you? He said, yes, sir. Do you see the perversion in that? Satan is tempting that little boy, 9-year-old boy, to think, you see that guy right over there sitting next to you, the guy you think is the greatest, bravest, strongest, most unbelievable human being in the world? He doesn't really want good things for you. Malachi seems to indicate that one of the evidences of the manifest presence of God is that the hearts of sons will be turned toward their fathers, hearts of fathers will be turned toward their sons, and I think by application, hearts of children will be turned toward their parents, hearts of parents will be turned toward their children. You and I are in a battle. And don't forget the reality of the battle, the bullseye on your back. And don't forget your dependence upon the gospel. Flee to Christ. May God be pleased to give us the strength and the courage and the resilience to live out gospel-centered families while you're here, so that when you leave here, you will export it all over the world. Amen.